In this video, I'm talking about the very first time that I changed duty locations, also sometimes known as a PCS. What's up, my friends? Welcome to an all new video. In this one, I'm going to give you a little bit of personal stories about an experience that I had while serving on active duty in the United States Army, maybe to help out some of you that may be curious about what it's like going to one duty location and then moving to another one, or just a little bit of, Army knowledge in general and stuff, and kind of hearing it from a veteran such as myself and hearing what it was like back then. I mean, some things may change here or there, but for the most part, given my experience on this particular type of situation. And before we get started, make sure that you're subscribed to this channel. Go ahead and click on that bell if you want to get alerts as soon as new videos go live, to include the live streams and become a part of that notification platoon. So let's talk about my first PCS move, going from Fort Riley, Kansas to Korea. So this happened back in 2002. I was stationed in Fort Riley for 2 years, and then I came up on orders for Korea. Now, like I said, some things have changed from then compared to now, and if there's things that I know that have changed, I'll make sure to mention that. But for the most part, this is just kind of giving you the story of what it was like for me at that time period during my very first PCS move. I only really did two. I went from Fort Riley, Kansas to Korea, and then I moved again from Korea to Fort Carson, Colorado. So let's dive into how I found out and how the process kind of went. So at this time, the way I found out was I received a letter in the mail. I was living in the barracks, so you had mailboxes down on the first floor of the barracks. They were kind of like P.O. boxes. You had like a key to your actual mailbox, open it up, and you get a letter or whatever inside of those boxes. Your mail came in those boxes. And in there, I had a letter from, I think it was HRC, I forget what HRC stands for. I probably placed it on the bottom of the video, but I think it was from them maybe. And then it had like in there a letter basically saying that I was on orders for Korea and the report date and everything like that. That may vary a little bit nowadays. Now, I'm sure you might get notified through your unit. I don't know if it still comes through the mail, so I don't know if it still is done that way. It might be a little bit better of a process than it was then, but I received that. Usually my unit would also receive a letter, I believe, as well, so they knew about it around the same time frame that I found out about it as well. So I received that letter probably, I don't know, maybe it was 3-4 months prior to when I was supposed to report. So I had a lot of time. It might have been even like 6 months prior, I don't remember. But it was several months kind of in advance that I received that letter to know that it was gonna happen and when it was gonna happen and all that stuff. So I had to kind of start doing a few things in the process to make the transition. What was I gonna do with my vehicle, and all that stuff like that, because I couldn't take my vehicle with me to Korea. If you're moving to another place in the States, then yes, you can take your vehicle with you. So I had to make arrangements for my vehicle and everything to take it back home. And what was I gonna do with my stuff? Was I gonna take everything with me, to Korea? Was I only gonna take some stuff with me to Korea? All that kind of arrangements. So I had to kind of start planning that out. As it got closer, you had to start clearing. Now you can choose to take vacation before you go. You can choose to just go directly there. I chose to take vacation a little bit prior to going. I think maybe I took like a week off. I think it was maybe 2 weeks off before I needed to report. But before that, you have to go through the clearing process. So in this clearing process, I have to make sure that, I don't owe any like library books to the post, make sure that, supply, I have to turn in everything that I have from that unit supply. So there's certain items that a soldier has to maintain that belongs to that specific unit. Things, for example, like a protective mask, the actual gas mask that you wear, that belongs to the unit. So you have to return those to the unit. You have to clear out any other things that, maybe installation related to that post so that you don't have any kind of obligation to that installation and then just take off and skip town. So you had a lot of different things you're clearing. You have medical appointments you have to go to make sure that you're still healthy before you take off on this move and everything like that. At that time, you also had to turn in all your gear. Your CIF is what it's called. The CIF location is where he has like, your helmet, your vest, your certain other, items. Your TA-50 is what it's officially called now, your TA-50. And so all of that items had to be turned into your local CIF at that installation and had to be cleaned and turned in. They've actually, I believe, gotten away from that way of having to turn it at each installation. Now they have it to where you are issued this stuff maybe at your first initial installation, and then if you move somewhere else, I believe they have you just keep everything rather than having to turn everything in. What I've understood, that's how they kind of do the process now, which alleviates them having to constantly send and receive, items, and it's only when you're getting out of the Army that you're turning all these items in. But that may vary from location to location. So I had to go through that whole process though. I had to clean all my gear, get it all turned in, and get everything turned into Fort Riley before I was cleared and able to, take off to my next duty location. So everything was all finalized and cleared. Then, you know, you had to go see, remember there was like a transportation office that you got your information for travel. So that way you had a plane ticket to get you to where you're gonna go. So it depends on how you're gonna kind of get there as far as how it's gonna work. Like for changing of duty stations from one place in the United States to another place in the United States, then you're just kind of making the arrangements of if you're gonna travel via airplane, if you're gonna drive, or what you're gonna do, you're making those travel arrangements. Because I was going to another country, obviously I'm gonna have to fly to that other country. So through that travel office, I was getting the flight arrangement for when I was gonna be leaving to get me there on time and all that kind of stuff. And then I was on my 2 weeks vacation or 1 week vacation, whatever it was. And then I had my plane ticket already booked for a specific date to leave to get me to Korea. So getting there was very similar to arriving at your first duty station. You still have in-processing. You still have a place you have to go to get in-process into their system for that installation. So that really doesn't change anything differently. Just now you're someone who's a little bit more experienced. You're showing up with some people who are brand new and some people that are like you where they PCS'd to this location and have been in the Army for X amount of years or whatever. There is no real kind of like segregation of those individuals. You're really just kind of all together, and you can usually tell who the brand new people are that are super nervous and the people that are a little bit more experienced that are, you know, they've done this before. There is some installations that will kind of make it to where, you know, E4 and below are not supposed to leave post while you're in processing, and you have to be E5 or married to be able to leave the installation during the in-processing period. And then some installations that don't really care. That just kind of varies. I remember like when I first arrived at Fort Carson, they had a policy at that time where E4 and below that were single had to stay on post and weren't allowed to leave base while you were in the in-processing phase. So because at that point in time you had to redraw all of your TA50, that was part of the process, just like everything else when you show up to a new installation and then you're sent off to your very first unit. So a lot of that stuff was really the same. That stuff didn't really change. Really the main thing that's different is how it works leaving the prior installation. So down and dirty, that's it. You have to clear your initial installation and then you have orders and then you're taken off to your new installation, in processing, bam. Now you're at another new unit and you spend X amount of time. It used to be back in those days, the average is around 2-3 years for a lot of people to stay at one location before they got PCS'd to another location. They have gone away from that even like later in my Army career. It seemed like maybe like around 2006, 2007, they kind of started extending that to where a lot of people were staying at duty stations for longer than 2 years, for maybe 4, 5, 6 years. And that was good because it kind of made it to where, you know, you got more training and you got to work with the unit a little bit better and be a little bit more combat ready with that unit to be more effective than someone who is only doing like 2 years with a unit and then having to get kind of integrated with another unit, you know, after, you know, only 2 years at one and then, you know, moving to another one to have to start this whole process all over again. So it's really better to, you know, be at one location for a longer amount of times before moving around, but it's also not good to stay at one location for your entire Army career, not get to experience other stuff, you know, be stuck with that same unit and all that kind of thing. You know, you want to experience other units, but at the same time, you don't want to only be at one unit for a short amount of time and then move to another one. So in addition to, I guess, you know, the experience of moving to it, what is it like, you know, trying to get to another duty station, right? Can you request that? You know, how does that kind of work? And sometimes you can request that. That's usually something you come up with orders for, but there is ways you can request to go somewhere else. Sometimes you can just talk to some people in your chain of command to say, hey, I'm interested in going to this duty location. You talk to your branch manager is what it's called for your particular MOS. You have a branch manager and you can sometimes contact that individual and say, hey, I'm looking to get this duty assignment, and if you can put me on orders for that, if available, I would love to go there. And sometimes that can work out to where that can help you move to another duty assignment. The more kind of common one is people re-enlist. They renew their contract for the Army. They're doing 4 years in the Army. They get to the 3-year mark and now their window for re-enlistment opens up and they re-enlist to go to another location that they would want to go to. That is still gonna be based on availability. For example, when I re-enlisted for the very first time, I was in Korea and I wanted Fort Irwin, California. And some of you may be like, why? Why on earth would you want Fort Irwin, California? That place sucks. Some of you may have loved that place. I don't really know. I never got the experience of actually being stationed there, just doing a lot of training there. But because I'm from California, I wanted to be closer to home, and that would have been like 2 hours away from my hometown, so I wanted to try to get it. But there wasn't any slots available for me at Fort Irwin, so I couldn't get Fort Irwin. I remember my second choice was actually Fort Huachuca, Arizona, because if I couldn't get Fort Irwin, well then maybe I would try Arizona, because then I'd be a little bit closer, and I could be in Arizona, I guess, and then just drive into California to go visit family on the weekends or on holidays or whatever. That was also not available for my MOS. There was like only 2 slots on the entire installation for 88 mics, so that was already full. It came down to my third choice, which was Fort Carson. My niece was stationed there in the Air Force. I had a lot of friends in Korea that had just come from Fort Carson that told me a lot of great stories about the area. So my third choice ended up being Fort Carson, Colorado, and that's where I ended up going anyways. So that's how you'd actually go about actually selecting where you wanted to go next and everything, if that was available to you. Otherwise, sometimes it may just come up in orders to send you somewheres. Now, for any of my veteran viewers out there, or maybe some individuals that are currently in the military, I'd love to hear, what was your second duty station? I know in that one video that I did talking about your very first one, I asked people what their first duty assignment was, but I would love to hear from some of you experienced individuals, what was your second duty station? How did you get it? Did you re-enlist for it? Did you come up on orders for it? How did you end up in your second duty assignment? For some of you viewers out there that are not yet in the military, I'd love to hear what duty assignments you would love to get. Some of you have already expressed to me what you'd love your first duty assignment to be, but what other duty assignments would you like to get? Maybe you'd like to go from this location to that location, or experience a few of these certain locations that are maybe on your list of ideal locations to go to. Leave those down in the comment section. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up, maybe even think about sharing it. I got some links down in the description box if you want to check out some of that information. I'm ThatChrisChaos. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. See ya.